What is up, friends, YouTube and motorcycle enthusiasts? This is Accelerate coming at you with a brand new bike reveal. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Accelerate, you just did a bike reveal of the 2016 Suzuki DR200. Well guys, I got another one coming at you. I am introducing my wife's new 2021 Kawasaki KLX140R F. How cool is this? So where did this bike come from? What is the idea behind it? Why did we choose that bike? This is exactly what we're going to talk about. We're going to get right into it. All right guys, first and foremost, why do we have a dirt bike whenever we just got a dual sport for my wife? Well, the funny thing is she actually did some riding off-road with her DR200. We were waiting to get the tags to come back to get it registered. So we did a little riding off-road and she had a blast. She absolutely loved it, did a great job. She had a lot of fun, and we started tossing around the idea of maybe getting her a dirt bike one day. Like all of you know, whenever you start talking about one day, someday we're going to do this, we ended up doing it much sooner than later. So I started looking at a dirt bike. I started thinking about what to get her. So the next question would be, now that we're talking about getting her a dirt bike, what bike are we going to get her? And let me tell you guys, we tossed around a lot of different ideas. So the bikes we tossed around, the idea of getting, number one was a Beta X trainer. And I gotta admit, the Beta X trainer is near and dear to my heart because I absolutely love that bike. 300cc, two-stroke, 218 pounds. I mean, it's the lowest seat of all the off-road bikes. It's the lightest full-size bike I think that the Beta makes, maybe minus their 125. We looked at a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, the seat height really became a big deal. So we also started looking at CRF 250F. Now, if many of you guys know, I reviewed that bike. My buddy Chad, we reviewed that bike, and my wife actually sat on one in the showroom. It just felt to be a little bit big and a little heavy for her starting out. Would it be in the future? I don't know, but once she sat on it, it was all about getting her comfortable. And I highly implore you guys that if you're considering looking at getting your spouse, your friend, you know, your son, daughter, sister, mother, father, whoever into dirt riding, it's all about inspiring confidence. They say that dirt bike riding can be a very cheap sport, and it absolutely can. But I think the number one thing is whenever you get people on a motorcycle, get them on something they're going to feel comfortable with. That's the key, because if they get on a bike that's too big, too heavy, too tall, it's going to be not fun right from the beginning. And that's the number one way to get people out of this sport. You want people to have fun, be comfortable immediately, make it very user-friendly for them. And if you have to upgrade bikes later, then so be it. That's kind of the cost of getting into dirt bike riding, especially for some people that are a little bit apprehensive. But I looked far and wide to figure out exactly what bike. I kept coming back to the Kawasaki KLX140G. Now, as many of you guys know, this is a 140R F, as I mentioned. Many of you guys know the G is a very popular bike. So the G is basically the grandfather of the RF. It's the exact same bike, guys. In 2021, Kawasaki just chose to make it the RF. So it's the same bike. What makes the RF and the G so special is that it's the 140 Kawasaki with a full-size wheel setup. And I gotta say, guys, we're talking 18 rear, 21-inch front. Why is that so important to us, and why is that important for an adult rider? Well, number one, tires. So with a legitimate 1821, you get the entire gambit of tire options whenever you start looking at putting new rubber on your bike. So that means everything from a full gummy all the way up to DOT tires if you wanted to go to the dual sport route. So there's so many more options whenever you have an 1821. I mentioned this in my DR200 video, why we like the DR200 so much as opposed to the TW200. Now, the same applies here for this 140R F, aka KLX140G, right? So The tire size is important for variety and options, right? So number two, what's another main reason why I was very insistent of going with the RF, F being the 1821 wheel size. We're talking deflection, folks. Whenever you start riding off-road, the smaller wheel sizes of your pit bikes, if any of you guys have seen any pit bike races or anything like that, or little kids trying to take bigger obstacles, the smaller wheels deflect much more. A full 1821 for an adult that can handle it is going to do much better as far as performance-wise. This is very important as we start to tackle harder terrain. The number three benefit is it gives you a higher lift. Your skid plate is not as low to the ground. Now the suspension travel on the R and the RF, or G and L and some of the other older models, is the same. The suspension travel, from my understanding, is not different. The only difference is you have the tire size. It's the same suspension overall. What they've changed is the wheels and the hub themselves. So along that line, you still, because it's taller, because it's a bigger wheel setup, you have more ground clearance. And I think for an adult rider getting into off-road, you're not exactly looking for ultimate performance, but you want to get somewhere in the middle of the road. Number one is comfort, above on all else, matching the bike to the rider to get them as comfortable as possible. And then the secondary thing is you want to get something they can grow with, and something that's they're not going to outgrow it in a month. You know, you don't want to put a full-size adult on this tiny little pit bike, and I didn't want to do that with my wife. So we talked about it. We went and we tested. She sat on a couple different bikes, and that's pretty much the conclusion we came to. Now, you'll notice that it's not completely stock, and well, I got some mods coming on the way. We've got some stuff that we want to do to it right out of the box. Of course, we never leave a brand new bike totally stock. So the only two things I've got to it done so far, the glaringly obvious is the Acerbis handguards. This is actually the first time I've seen these Acerbis handguards in person. I gotta say, I like them. They're extremely stylish, but they're also very functional. One thing I did like about them is they have the kit to install them on the 7/8 inch bar or the 1 1/8 inch bar. So it comes with both sets of mounts if you ever upgrade bars or you have a bike that can, you know, one or the other. So that's really good. I think we will eventually plan on upgrading the bars on this bike, but my wife didn't want to do it right away. She wanted to mostly keep it stock. And of course, you cannot have an electric start motorcycle with a battery without installing a battery tender. So I put the permanent plug on here, just like all of our bikes, they always sit on a battery tender. It's so much nicer, it's better for the battery. You know, this bike, like many manufacturers, does not have a kickstart, guys. So a lot of trail bikes, a lot of even in your racing enduro bikes, they're moving away from kickstarts if they have the electric start. So because this bike is an electric start, Kawasaki, they did not use a kickstart. So we definitely wanted to make sure that battery stays healthy for the times that it sets. Now, one other thing I did forget to mention, and this is, I kid you not, this is probably the first time I've bought a new motorcycle since I was about 8 years old, and my parents bought it for me. They bought me a new Yamaha RT100. So the first new bike that we've had in a long time, and the first option to put a proper hour meter on it. So right there, we were there at the dealership. We actually picked the bike up, went and got some food, and I said, oh man, I really want to put an hour meter on it right away. We went back to the dealership and they had that Moose Racing hour meter in stock. We went ahead and picked it up. So we've got 2.7 hours on the bike. My wife has ridden it. She loves it. I'm actually going to throw a little clip of her riding it here at the end of the video. So she's loving it. The bike really seems to fit her well. So moving into, again, why we chose this bike for her, another big one is weight. Okay, so another reason that we chose this bike, specifically the KLX140R F, is weight. Now, I gotta say, guys, A lot of manufacturers like to get very mystic with their weights. Kawasaki goes straight to the throat. They list their bikes ready to ride with full fluids, 218 pounds. For a full-size motorcycle, as many of you guys know, that is extremely light, especially considering we're using a steel frame, and some of the other suspension components are definitely more heavy as well because they're not race components. So 218 pounds. I've ridden this thing around a little bit. It's feather light, very flickable. It's actually the same weight as an X-Trainer. I'm not 100% sure if Beta quotes full of gas or not, but the X-Trainer is very light. So 218 pounds was a huge win for us. As we looked at the TTR 230s, the CRF 250 and 230Fs, all the other variants, we started getting 250, 260, 70 pounds. And you know, the bikes just get heavier. My wife needed to be able to pick this thing up on her own if she drops it, and to ultimately feel confident with the bike. So, you know, weight was a big one for us. So another huge win for the KLX. All right, guys, the last reason why we chose the KLX. Now, this one's a little bit more on my end. I'm a kind of a bike build junkie. I haven't really had a chance to quote build bikes too much, just because the bikes that I own are way more capable than I am. They have more power, more suspension capability than I have. This little guy, this 140 air-cooled motor, actually has a lot of potential. After doing a little bit of research, there's a ton of stuff that you can do to these things to really open them up, which makes them another great candidate for a full-size adult. If a full-size adult that wasn't too heavy, we'll just say a 160, 150 pound, 170 pound adult wanted to get something like this to get into riding, you could totally do it. After a little bit of research, I started finding things like KLX140 fork swap. They bolt right up, OEM parts, very easy to do. Rear shock upgrade, another huge suspension piece that is going to make this thing, you know, handle way better, much more capable. In fact, you could do motocross with it, with a shock and a fork upgrade, with a heavier rider and a faster rider. Then I started looking at some other stuff. FMF makes a power bomb header, a full exhaust. They replace the muffler as well. So then you have some other companies that get in, and they also have piston kits, big bore kits to take it from a 140 to a 70, higher profile lift cams. And then there's a key and carb upgrade, 28 millimeters. So all that stuff goes together. As somebody started outgrowing the performance of this bike, you could totally upgrade it. And the beauty of it is you have the same size bike, that same lightweight, and you just get more performance. So I really think that this KLX 140R F is a fantastic platform for my wife, or for any adult that, for that matter, that gets into that wants to get into riding, right? So one thing I forgot to mention, another huge advantage to the 2118 setup is tubeless. You can totally put tubeless on the tires for more advanced off-road traction, you know, for if you want to do more racing, if you want to do hair scrambles, anything to give yourself more performance. So overall, fantastic combination. All right, guys, that pretty much wraps up the bike reveal. I want to thank you for watching the channel. Thanks for clicking that subscribe button and the like button. It's always much appreciated. This is just a huge hobby for us. So we're out here having fun, riding dirt bikes and doing what we do regardless. We just enjoy the support. Thanks for stopping by the channel. Want you to get out there, get on two wheels, ride a dirt bike. This is Accelerate once again, signing off.